My friends Taylor from Doom to Fail. I'm super excited for this week's re-releases. We'll be releasing episode 10 in two parts, part 1 and part 2. For episode 10, we decided to do the stories that are in our theme song. So for this first part, Faraz is going to talk about OJ and Nicole Simpson. If you were there, you were there. And if you weren't, buckle up. It's crazy, and OJ Simpson's, still around and out of jail. So let us know what you think. Let us know your theories and your thoughts. And it's a truly American story of sports and murder and fame. So, yeah, I hope you enjoy. If you have any questions or any ideas for us, doomtofailpod@gmail.com. Please take a second to like us on Apple Podcasts. It means so much to us, and we appreciate you. Talk to you soon.
In the matter of the people of the state of California versus Orenthal James Simpson, case number BA097.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Welcome to Doom to Fail, the podcast where me and Taylor seemingly keep missing each other in Dallas. I'm Fars. I'm joined here by Taylor. Hi, Taylor. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm tired. I just got to Dallas,
God, I'm tired.
and I missed you by a day, but here we are.
But not on purpose. I was trying to get out Thursday night and super annoying. My plane got canceled really late. So luckily I have a friend that lives pretty close to the airport. So I went and stayed with her. I just got to her house at midnight and then slept on a air mattress and then left at 5 to go back to the airport. And I was on standby for an 8 o'clock flight back to California. And luckily I got on it. Otherwise I would have been there the rest of the day.
That's awful.
So,
that's so bad.
Yeah. So I'm happy to be home. Yeah.
That's good to hear. We are going to be doing, this is our 10th episode, which is a special 10th episode for us.
Woohoo!
I'm kind of proud of us for getting this far and maintaining
I am too.
consistency.
It's very exciting. Yeah.
And you had a suggestion for what we should do for our 10th episode. Do you want to tell folks what that is?
Yeah, I thought to celebrate, and it's so funny because I feel like a lot of podcasts when they get to their 100th episode, they have a party, and I'm like, oh my God, that feels so far away. But we're here at number 10, and I thought that we should do the relationships that are in our theme song. Farz's brother made it for us, and it has two pretty famous stories in it, so we thought we'd head over to those.
Love it.
You're going first.
I'm going first.
Yeah.
Let's start with your drink.
Okay, I'm going to try to do this. My drink is a Sam Adams because it's a nice Boston lager. How do you do? Boston lager.
Just nailed that accent.
That's how the Kennedys talk. Boston lager. So,
Lager.
I don't have that. All I have is this Stone IPA, so I'm going to drink that right now. But
sounds so good. Hold on, let me see if my parents have any beer.
But I only have one beer, I think. Oh no, I have Bud Lights because whenever my dad visits, he leaves a trail of Bud Lights.
Bud Light Limes?
Worst comes to worst, I can always have a Bud Light. No, just regular ones.
Oh man, there's no beer. Okay, so much for that. My drink is a screwdriver because I am covering Orenthal James Simpson, and I feel like if you're married to him, you got to be drunk on screwdrivers. You got to pour some vodka in the OJ to maintain that marriage for any bit of time.
It's hilarious. I love it. It's real good.
Also, I'm totally aware that my audio quality is going backwards this week, and it is just because I'm traveling.
That's okay.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and dive right in. So I'm going to start with my side of the true crime side of things with OJ Simpson. I'll start by saying that this story has been covered to death. But in researching this episode, so many things came up that I just forgotten about or never really knew. Some of our listeners, like ourselves, were old enough to remember watching the white Bronco chase. If that is you, then you already probably know the broad strokes of what happened here, but we're going to go into it anyways. If you're too young to remember, in addition to this podcast, I would recommend checking out The People versus O.J. Simpson on Netflix. Taylor, have you seen that?
I have. It's by the it's an American crime story, right? Or is it the documentary?
This is not the documentary. This
Yeah.
one's the 10-part series that really just starts with the murders and ends with the verdict. Cuba Gooding Jr. is in it. He does an
Hmm.
incredible job
Yes,
as OJ. And if you remember, John Travolta plays Robert slash Bob Shapiro.
I do remember that. Very nice. And Sarah Paulson is in it too. She's the the other lawyer. She's great.
Marcia Clark.
Marsha Clark.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's so good.
So
Cool.
obviously, this is, it is sad. Spoiler alert: two people lost their lives. Nicole Brown and Ronald Goldman were the two victims, and obviously, it's a tragedy and all that. But the one thing I would say is that this is going to sound really weird, but when I started researching this, I thought of Rambo for some reason, and
Hmm.
what I think I was really focused on there was that there's some things historically that produce amazing stuff as a result of it. So, for
Hmm.
example, I was thinking about, I started going down this path of thinking about Vietnam and how Rambo, the character, is really a byproduct. Like, it wouldn't exist but for Vietnam. And then I started researching what are some other
Hmm.
things that were a byproduct of that war. And Hendrix, Zappa, Dylan, all of these amazing, iconic
Hmm.
musicians were completely influenced by that war. And circling back
Can
to
I
the
bring in a
topic
hot
of,
take?
yeah,
Bob Dylan is terrible. His song lyrics are like a 5-year-old wrote them. Like it's like he rhymes words like bird, nerd, and like that's it. That's it. He's like not. It's really, really bad. And I saw him in person like 15 years ago, and even then he was too old to be performing, and it was just like
oh, geez.
anyway,
I believe it.
unimpressed.
I'm not like a fanboy of Bob Dylan. I will argue that Hendrix is amazing, but you didn't besmirch him,
Yes,
so we don't
indeed,
have to go
indeed,
into it.
indeed. I said nothing about that. Yeah.
Circling back to the topic of today in this event, I went on Amazon and I looked up the books category and searched for O.J. Simpson. There were 16 books per page result returned by Amazon, and there were 39 pages.
Oh my gosh, you said 16. I was like, there has to be more than 16, and there's like thousands more than 16. Oh my God,
624 books
hilarious.
on Amazon right now that you can read about the O.J. Simpson trial. That doesn't include
This is what I
all
feel like.
the. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm gonna say like this is what I feel like when people are like, "Oh, you're starting a podcast." Everyone has a podcast. I'm like, yeah, everyone also has a book about O.J. Simpson.
Yeah.
I mean,
Ser- uh,
no one's
this
listening, but
this does not include anthologies. It just include O.J. Simpson in it, like Spouse Killer,
yeah,
like all that. None of that other true crime stuff. That's not included in this. This is literally just about the trial. And actually, every character that we're going to discuss here has written at least one book on it, including the
I'm sure. Yeah.
prosecutors, the attorney, all of them. And then in addition to that, I went and found there were 20 songs written that reference the killings. There are five
Mm.
like shitty movies that came out immediately after this case became a thing, not including the
Hmm.
Netflix series I just mentioned or the three movies that O.J. Simpson himself starred in and the TV prank show that he produced. So like, there's a ton of content that came out of this
Hmm.
case. One thing I read that isn't here that I didn't list here, but is 100% believe it, is that the night of the murder, somebody already started trying to sell the book rights to a publisher. The actual night that they found out that this happened, somebody tried to actually capitalize on it.
Fuck yeah, good for that person. Because
I know. Good for them too.
I
Yeah.
mean, yeah.
And one thing we can thank this case on is giving us the Kardashian family. Really, I'm not a
I know.
Kardashian. I don't really care. Sure, I'm happy for them. They're doing great. They're doing their own thing. Whatever. I'm sure people have feelings about it, but
Whatever.
Kim Kardashian's dad, her father Rob, was one of OJ's defense attorneys and a really really close friend of his. We'll get into like how close they actually ended up being. And he was also like hilariously played by David Schwimmer in the Netflix series.
Oh
He
my
just looked
God.
he just always, I don't know what it is about David Schwimmer, but he just always looks confused. He
Oh
played
my gosh.
him
It was amazing.
fantastic. Yeah.
You
Um,
felt so bad for that man.
who Rob?
Yeah. Yeah. He was just so sad. He just like was like, this is my best friend. He couldn't have killed someone. And then he was like, I'm sure they intentionally did this, but they had him like with his kids and being like, it's more important to be a good person than to be rich. And of course, like after he died, his family like did their thing. So it's funny.
don't you feel like that was editorialized just to like poke fun at the Kardashian
Oh,
family though?
totally was.
Okay.
Absolutely. But it was hilarious. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so long story short is that there are millions of cultural touchstones that come out of this event. We're gonna just start by getting into the main characters here. Taylor, curious to know your take on this. So you would have been of an age. You watched this, right? Like you, I'm assuming you kept
Yeah.
up with this. Okay.
Yeah.
Was
For sure.
was O.J. Simpson a name you would recognize before this happened?
I only not as like anything else, and I don't know if it's before or after, but there's this movie that we used to watch when I was little with Annette Funicello from the Mickey Mouse Club where she's older, and it's called Back to the Beach, and it's like her and her family. Lori Loughlin is in it. It's like very bizarre. But I used to watch it all the time with my family, and in that movie, they're at the airport and they see OJ Simpson and they say, "Is that OJ Simpson?" But then they see he like runs and trips over a bunch of suitcases, and they're like, "Oh no, it can't be."
That actually
I
sounds
think that's
familiar.
for I don't know. It's like a totally random cultural point, but so I might have known like of him because of that, or that, but like not like a lot. Like we weren't like Bills fans, so.
Yeah, I might have been too young, but the name O.J. Simpson meant absolutely nothing to me before this all happened. But apparently,
Hmm.
I mean, people treated this guy like a messiah almost. There's a funny story
Oh
that
yeah.
is debunked now about how James Cameron originally cast O.J. as the Terminator in the movies.
Hmm.
Arnold Schwarzenegger has said that O.J. wasn't believable as a killing machine, so they recast the role for him. All this
Hmm.
isn't true. So James Cameron actually has come out. It was relatively recently. I read an article that James Cameron came out and said, no, this was literally just one phone call. Some executive who was on the production company side of things called James Cameron and said, hey, we recommend you cast OJ in this role. Wasn't true, but obviously his name was big enough to where it's being batted around in Hollywood hallways to the likes of a James Cameron, right? So
Yeah,
that's
he was
worth
like a
something.
cultural phenomenon.
Yeah, yeah,
He was like one of the first football like superstars because I feel like before there's like a lot of terrible stories about men who were like in football in the 60s who didn't get paid a lot in the NFL and now have terrible brain diseases or brain injuries. And people are like, "Oh, but you were in the NFL." And they're like, "It wasn't like that. It wasn't like I was a superstar, all these endorsements. It was like kind of like a regular job, you know?"
yeah,
So they didn't get
yeah.
paid this extraordinary amount. So he was like one of the first. I think he did all those Hertz endorsements, right? The Hertz cars. He was just like, I think maybe the first really, really, really famous one, especially the first black one. I think, like, as a black man being super uber famous.
You are nailing everything here. That is a really good encapsulation.
Yes.
Again, I
Okay.
wasn't aware. No, no, I wasn't aware of any of like I. I'm gonna get into it, but like that was actually a really
Okay.
good way
Please
to
do.
phrase it. So going back to the characters, the
Got
main
it.
characters of the story, we have Orenthal James Simpson, OJ himself, who was a former professional football player and an actor. We have Nicole Brown Simpson. She has no work history to speak of, really. Her and OJ met when she was a waitress at 18 years old. And we have Ronald
Oh.
Lyle Goldman, who was a waiter who had the misfortune of being friends with Nicole, or having some sort of relationship with her. Like I don't, we don't know, but whatever, doesn't matter,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, I agree.
I'll start by saying I love football, but America's hero worship of football is kind of insane.
Yeah.
There is no doubt OJ was a phenomenal athlete, but this guy's hero status got him into and out of so many things that are completely closed off to normal human beings.
Hmm.
I mean, think about it. It's literally the reason why we know his name. I mean, murdering spouses is nothing new, and yet this guy has been
Hmm.
dominating the public consciousness for almost 30 years now. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna list off OJ's achievements, not because they're meaningful to me or probably really the listeners either, but it helps paint a picture of just how respected this guy was at that time. These are just bullet points I'm gonna rattle off. He played for USC and when he graduated, they retired his jersey. For context, this actually has only happened 6 times. So it's only 6 players, including OJ, in Trojan history have ever had their numbers retired. He won All American twice in college. He won the Heisman Trophy. He was basically in every what is essentially now the Pro Bowl of his era. Back then it was called the all time
Hmm.
teams. He had
Hmm.
the most touchdowns in 1975, the most rushing touchdowns in 73 and 75, the most rushing yards for 4 seasons. He won the Offensive Player of the Year 3 times, The Associated Press named him Athlete of the Year in 1973. Once they started actually having Pro Bowls and naming it that, he played in 5 of them. He won Offensive Player of the Year in 73, and he won the NFL Most Valuable Player in 73 as well.
What a year.
I, it felt like they were just inventing awards to give to this guy, but he actually was that exceptional. His
Yeah.
players, like his player stats, are way too boring to go into. Again, tons of hero worship here, but if you want to, you can go and look on his Wikipedia page, and somebody has meticulously gone through every year, everything he did, every game he played, and noted all of it. I mean, even if you don't get to the murders, it's like 50 pages of content just by going off of that stuff. I would say that every publication I looked at listed him on the top 50 best players in the history of football. Bleacher Report, which is probably one of the more respected, content creators on the sports front, actually has him listed number 16 all time, which is actually ahead of Tom Brady. That's the status of person that we're talking about here.
I don't know why I said good to that, but like I feel equally unimpressed with Tom Brady as I do with O.J. Simpson, even though he has not killed anyone, and I hope he never does.
I think you're just over Boston and New England people after your research this week.
For real.
So
that's fair.
You did really good on that. That's enough of his NFL stats. OJ always also had a passion for acting. He actually started doing bit parts in shows while he was still in college at USC. His most famous roles were obviously the Naked Gun movies, which are amazing. People should go watch those. He also hosted SNL. He was a commentator for the NFL on NBC, and as you had actually mentioned earlier, he was also a spokesperson for Hertz, the rental car company. OJ was actually kind of shrewd when it comes to business. He knew exactly what you just said, Taylor. He knew he had the it factor that had evaded black athletes for most of sports history. White America saw OJ as just this non-threatening, very affable, good-looking, charming guy. Ironically, he never had scandals. And like I said before, he literally won every single award that existed.
Totally.
So he had a ton of endorsement deals. He had allocated resources from his football, time that he was making money doing football, to buying hotels, buying restaurants. Outside of football, he was making about $1 million per year, which converted to today's money is about $2.1 million. That's away from football. That is literally just endorsements, side hustle businesses that he had. Like I said, OJ and Nicole met and started dating when she was 18, and he was actually still married to a woman named Marguerite, whom she had 3 kids with. 2 years later, in 1979, OJ and Marguerite divorced, and he would eventually marry Nicole in 1985. So by my count, that puts Nicole at 26 and him at 37 years old.
When they get married?
Yeah. So at this point, he'd retired, by the way. At this point, he'd retired. So at this point, by the time he marries Nicole, he's lived a complete life. I mean, everything I just listed off that he did, that happened 5 years before this marriage came about. He marries Nicole, and as she's involved in his life, he is ramping up to the next round of being this successful actor, spokesperson, multiple business owner, all the rest of it.
Oh my God, imagine if we would have played like Simpson instead of Madden.
Wait, played OJ?
Yeah, imagine if like he had been Madden and like made the game and like had not done anything bad. Like he could have just like done so many more things.
I've thought about that so many times because the way this guy's life derails after this case, we'll get into that. Talk about like complete 180, right? From the most affable, charming, non-offensive, non-scandal person to like. Anyways, we know who he is now, right?
Like we always say, we're the only podcast advocating not to kill your family, and these are the consequences.
Nothing good happens. Nothing good. You turn to OJ.
Yeah.
So I don't know how smart I think OJ or Nicole are in comparison to one another, but still, I mean, I would be intimidated by his success. Like, never mind a 26-year-old. I mean, think about this guy's like he knows everybody. Everybody who's rich, famous, powerful in Hollywood knows your husband and like is very, very close to him, wants him to like them. That's the status that we're talking about here.
That's the power dynamic we always talk about.
Yeah. And this one goes so much deeper. So I wrote here that, yeah, sure, there's the power dynamic that we always talk about, 11-year age difference, wealth, so on, all the other stuff. But it's also different because there's a cultural dynamic at play here. If you're Nicole, you don't just have a husband in O.J. Simpson. You have a national hero, like literally Mr.
Hmm.
All-American. Like, who will ever
Yeah.
care about the faults that you have with this person, whether they're abusive or not?
Yeah.
Like, how could you have any issues with you're married to O.J.
Right.
Simpson?
He's untouchable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're married in 85. They have 2 kids together, which we never talk about, thankfully. Like, I'm researching this, you never hear about the kids ever. There's one
Yeah.
part of the story where you hear about the kids, and that literally had to do when the police called OJ to tell him that Nicole was dead, and you're just like, how are the kids? That's the only time they really come up. So
Hmm.
kudos to the media for a change, for not being
Hmm.
horrible about this situation with them. But poor kids, right?
Yeah. Poor babies. Yeah.
There were obviously claims of spousal abuse. One claim in 1989 actually went to court. In total, there were 62 incidences of abuse, of which Nicole actually only reported 8. Mostly, this was because she was 100% financially dependent on OJ. Part of their marriage included a prenuptial agreement. Part of that prenuptial agreement included a stipulation that said that she's like legally not allowed to take on employment. She was 100% dependent on OJ. That's part of why they think that she never. I mean, again, only one of those situations actually went to trial. There were many stories that were told about. I mean, this was a classic "I fell on the doorknob" story, right? So
Yeah.
she
Hmm.
always made excuses for him.
Are
Nicole
you
would
going to talk about the
eventually.
911 calls? Have you heard them from her?
I have heard the 911 calls, but I didn't actually include them in this outline. Do you want to talk about them?
Hmm. Well, just the one that I heard is he was like beating her up and she was calling the police and she'd called them probably several times and she like told them her address and they were like, she's like, my husband, like he's hitting me. And they were like, who's your husband? And she was like, you know who it is. It's OJ Simpson. She was very like, you know who this is. Like,
Yeah,
stop trying to like make me say it. She's like, he's not on, like, stop making him untouchable. You know who it is. So it sounds like she, I mean, I'm sure that there were, like you said, like tons of times where she didn't call anyone because also like who would believe her maybe? Or
yeah,
like who wants to get into that? Like you don't want to like step into that puddle.
yeah. It's so Hollywood to me because everybody's such a grifter,
Hmm.
and they're all trying to saddle up to power, which is just the dynamic of people in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And so why would you
Hmm.
go against OJ? Like that's, I mean, outside of moral obligations, obviously, but to Nicole's credit, she did finally file for divorce. She cited irreconcilable differences. They apparently tried getting back together. That obviously didn't work out, and the divorce was finalized somewhere in 1992. Let's get into the crime itself. I'll start by saying that OJ was obviously acquitted of the murders in criminal court. He was, however, found guilty of wrongful death when he was sued in civil court. Not going super into the procedural side of things, but in criminal court, the burden of proof is beyond a reasonable doubt. In civil court, it is much lower. It is preponderance of the evidence. Hence why the results are different. All that being said, OJ did it. Like we all know that, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say after that, but he did it. I do have a fun conspiracy theory that I'd like to share with you later. But no, he 100% did it.
Yeah,
Correct.
I'm calling that an indisputable fact.
Yes.
So on June 12th of 1994, this would be 2 years after the divorce, OJ and Nicole attended the recital of their daughter, after which they parted ways. Nicole went to a restaurant with her family, a restaurant where Ronald Goldman was a waiter. Side note,
Hmm.
I kind of hate how much I love the characters here. This is such an LA story. I'm bringing that up because as I researched this, I remembered Kato Kalin. Do you remember him?
I was just thinking, I was like, characters. I was like, Kato. Yes. Oh my God, totally.
He's incredible. He
He's
was
incredible.
he lived in OJ's like guest house, some burnt out actor. Anyways, so in this on this night, while Nicole is having dinner with her family, OJ was getting McDonald's takeout with Kato. At some point in the night, at some point in the night, Nicole's mom calls the restaurant they ate at and told them that she was missing her glasses. The manager
Mm.
found the glasses, and apparently Ron was supposed to go to Nicole's house to return them. That was the game plan. Around 11 p.m. on that night, a man in Nicole's neighborhood was out for a stroll when Nicole's dog came up to him covered in blood. Apparently,
Ugh.
yeah, apparently this guy didn't find that suspicious. He just like walked home and the dog followed him. Eventually, one of the neighbors, some couple said, "Hey, I'll take the dog in." The guy didn't want to hold on to it. They knew it was Nicole's, and then they went back to the house to Nicole's place to return the dog, and that's when they discovered her body. So she had been stabbed to death. Apparently, she was nearly decapitated. It was a pretty gruesome
Ugh.
scene.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I heard.
Ron's body
Yikes.
was found nearby and had also been stabbed multiple times. It was assumed that OJ was killing Nicole when Ron showed up, and he took Ron out basically to avoid witnesses. At the scene, police found a blue cap and a leather glove, which will come up very famously later on. The night all this went down, OJ was actually supposed to be flying to Chicago to meet with Hertz executives. A limo driver arrived at his house and waited for him until sometime around 10:40 p.m. or so to take him to the airport. Apparently, the limo driver stated that he loaded 4 pieces of luggage in the car, but OJ only flew with 3. So the assumption was that he went to LAX and he took a piece of luggage with him that hadn't committed any evidence and just disposed of it there in the public bins. Police
Wow.
call OJ in Chicago the next day to tell him about Nicole's death. He sounded upset, but like I said, he was mostly disinterested, according to what's been reported.
Why? First, is that normal? Like, would someone call like your ex-wife if you were murdered? No, right?
That is weird.
Like, why would they call him? Like, I just think probably just because he's famous, I guess, and they wanted to talk to O.J. Simpson. But like, that feels really weird. I feel like, why would you call someone's ex if they were murdered? You would call like anyone else. I don't know.
Well, what I can guess is that the kids were in the house when she was killed, and so maybe,
Oh, yeah. As a parent, okay, that makes sense because he was
yeah,
the parent and the poor kids. Oh, poor babies. Okay,
yeah, that's the only thing I
that
can
makes sense.
figure.
Yeah.
They ended up asking him to come in for questioning, which he did, and he was caught immediately lying. Immediately, like the first thing coming out of his mouth, he's such a dope. Well, also, I think that he's also probably like in shock about what he did, maybe to an extent. But he lies about a cut on his hand, and he says that he got it in Chicago.
Yeah, like,
Yeah, like he said that like he was so stunned when he heard the news, but they found like blood prints in his vehicle, and they're like, and then he was like, "Oh no, I got it the day before I left for Chicago. I forgot." Like it was like, why? What a weird thing to lie about.
before you said that they had a cut in his hand, I was thinking like his hand would hurt because I remember in like, this is gross, but I remember in the Manson murders, one of the girls that was like stabbing Abigail Folger to death was like, I was surprised how much my hand hurt because
Yeah,
it's not easy to almost decapitate someone, you know? Like,
yeah.
he just did something so traumatic, I mean, you can't, I don't know.
But like also
Keep going.
remember, Taylor, like he's like a super athlete. Like he's not a normal weightlifter.
No, I know, but that's like it's a different muscle to do a bunch of stabbing.
I guess.
I don't know. Okay,
I don't
just
know.
an idea. Keep going.
So, the next day after OJ comes back from Chicago, goes to talk to the police, he hires Rob Shapiro, who's a lawyer basically tasked with assembling a defense team for him. They call this defense team the Dream Team. He hired a who's who of the most expensive lawyers in Los Angeles. They all became ancillary characters in their own right. It was reported during this time OJ was very, very distraught and super depressed. He actually went and stayed at Rob Kardashian's house with him and his family for several days
Mm-hmm.
for the moral support, I would assume.
Mm-hmm.
On June,
And in the show, they make it clear that when he did that, he had a girlfriend. Do you
yeah,
remember that?
yeah, I
So
can't
like
remember,
that's bananas. Yeah. Keep going.
Barbieri or something. I mean, yeah, she became
I don't remember.
so well,
But that woman had to like share a bed with him at the Kardashians
so weird.
I mean, give me a break. That's terrifying.
There was one piece of this which like OJ apparently had a bunch of naked pictures of this girlfriend up at his house, and the jury went to his house to like look at the scene of him being at the house or whatever, and apparently Johnny Cochran and Rob Kardashian went to the house and replaced all the naked pictures of this woman that he was dating with like what was it? It was who's that artist that's Norman Rockwell. They replaced all these naked pictures
Yeah, right.
with Norman Rockwell paintings.
It's so funny.
On June 17th, the LAPD concludes that they have enough and they ask OJ to surrender himself. They ask him to surrender himself. Like, that's what we're talking about here.
Hmm.
Nobody else would this happen
Right.
to.
They would go get him. Yes.
Yeah. This actually is like a huge part of the Netflix series is like this saga of getting OJ to the police station. The police tell Shapiro this, who then relayed this to OJ. At this point, formal murder charges have been filed by the state. Somehow, I don't know. Maybe it's the fame, maybe it's really good lawyering, but his lawyers keep delaying him going to the police station to surrender himself, up to a point.
Hmm.
The LAPD eventually has enough, and they just go to the Kardashian house to arrest him. They're like, "This is enough, finally."
Hmm.
By this point, OJ and his friend and former teammate Al Cowlings, who we'll refer to here going forward as AC, had apparently disappeared from the Kardashian house, and an APB was put out for both of them for their arrest as fugitives. Hours after the disappearance, Rob finds a suicide letter from OJ, which, okay, like, I get it, suicide sucks. This one was so woe is me. Like, it's the ramblings of somebody incredibly privileged and not understanding how badly he fucked everything up. He just really
Hmm.
felt sorry for himself. Going to the Bronco chase, the famous Bronco chase, this was such a big deal if you were old enough to remember this.
Hmm.
They
This I
interrupted,
remember for sure.
yeah, like the details of it, like rereading, I was like, oh my, I can't believe this. They interrupted an NBA Finals game just to air this.
Oh
I
my
remember
gosh.
when this happened, my parents were having a party at our house, and everybody literally stopped everything to go watch this chase. And it also reminded me of, like, again, how LA this is. I mean, you remember this when you lived in LA? Like, it was a pastime to watch car chases. It was just like it
Oh
happened
yeah.
so
Oh my gosh.
frequently.
There's so many. That's
Yeah,
really funny. I just someone at my office, we were talking about it recently, and she was born that day in Inglewood, and I was just like, "Oh my God, your mom must have been like, what are the doctors doing? They're not here
yeah.
helping me, you know?"
Yeah, that's wild. There are so many details here. Some of the fun ones are that what the way they got to OJ during this car chase was they would have all these people go on the news and start talking like they're talking to OJ, but it's being broadcast across the entire country, right? They would have
Oh my
his
gosh.
coaches, all these famous friends he had, these former famous teammates and players. All of them would go on
Mm-hmm.
news shows and literally be talking to OJ on the radio.
That's so funny.
Apparently he had a gun on him as well. AC calls this out and says, "Hey, he's got a gun." He was basically sitting in the back seat. He was wailing about Nicole, about how he's ruined his life. Just every indicator of how guilty this man actually is. This
Like, oh, I
thing
made a mistake. I should not have killed someone.
Yeah,
Oh my
basically
gosh.
that. So this thing drags on for hours. Apparently, the police helicopter had to stop and go back and refuel. Like, that's how long this was
Oh my
taking on. But
God.
this wasn't like a high speed thing. It was just like this meandering around the
It was
101, the
so
110.
slow.
Yeah, it totally
Yeah.
was. Eventually, AC and OJ make it back to his estate, and he goes in the house for about an hour before Bob Shapiro arrives and escorts him out to be arrested finally. Getting to the pretrial side of things, OJ pled not guilty, obviously, and a trial was set for January 24th, 1995. They really harped on the fact that he really wanted an expedited trial for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why he was so in need of that. Maybe it was just get back to normal life, let me get acquitted and move on. I love
Hmm.
how literally everyone in this trial became their own celebrities just by
Oh
association.
yeah. Well, was it the first trial that was on TV or was that Menendez Brothers? It was like one of the two, right?
So I thought the McMartin thing was first,
This
wasn't
the,
it?
the preschool?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I
It's one
should
of
have
the
looked
first, I
that up.
guess.
It had to be one of the
Yeah.
first. So for example, the judge in this case, Lance Ito, he was lampooned on SNL. Marsha
Oh
Clark, who
yeah, I
was
remember that.
the Dancing Itos.
Hmm.
So Marsha Clark, she was the lead prosecutor. She became a television personality who basically now reports on legal matters. OJ's own defense team became superstars in their own right. I don't know if you know this, but Bob Shapiro became like the face and founder of LegalZoom.
Oh, that's funny. The founder?
Yeah. Well, they bill him as the founder. I'm sure he was. I'm sure the actual technical founder really needed like a famous lawyer to like attach it to. But yeah, that's how he's billed.
That's hilarious. I love it. Is he still alive? Is he dead?
I don't know. I know that. I know that. I know that. I mean, it's sad. Like so many of his lawyers died like weird, tragic deaths. Like Rob Kardashian famously died pretty soon after this trial, and so did Johnny Cochran actually.
Yeah.
So going into the trial side of it, it would be tough to discuss this without discussing race. This murder and the trial happened 2 to 3 years after the LA riots happened, which were sparked by the LAPD beating the shit out of a black man named Rodney King. Obviously, things like this, like the LA riot, don't happen overnight. This was a powder keg just waiting to explode. For years, it was obvious that racial tensions in LA were on the rise, and the police just weren't helping anything. There's video of Rodney King's beating that everyone saw, and this is the part that I didn't remember that came up as I was doing the research, but the officers who were responsible were tried, and the jury was mostly white, and they were all acquitted. So that's actually what started the riots, which I didn't actually remember any of this. OJ.
Yeah, I remember. I've seen the video. I remember that.
It's awful.
Yeah. Yeah.
OJ was obviously a very prominent, very successful black man. Nicole and Ron were both white. There was an obvious racial divide and a racial tension in the city at the time. Interestingly, both the prosecution and the defense had a very similar strategy regarding who they wanted on the jury, but for very, very different reasons. So the prosecution wanted women because they assumed that the domestic violence component of this would resonate with them. The defense also wanted women, but they were very specific. They wanted only black women because their research showed that black women disproportionately disapprove of interracial marriages. The jury ended up being 10 women, 2 men, 9 were black, 2 were white, and there was 1 Hispanic man. Which, you know, given how this trial played out, the defense was right, I think.
Yeah.
So the reason I say that it is almost impossible to believe he did not do this, here's an example of some of the evidence that they had outside of the circumstantial stuff of like, he disappeared in a car chase, tried to kill himself, was wailing about, like, all these stuff that make it obvious that he did it. But
innocent people don't do that. Yeah.
Like, never, right? Yeah. Beyond that, and this part's really, I'll harp on this here in a minute, but his DNA was identified near the bodies of the crime scene. His blood was left as a trail leaving the crime scene. The blood of him, Nicole, and Ron were in the white Bronco. There's like 8 more of these. Yeah. I'm barely scratching the surface of how much forensic evidence and DNA evidence there was here. But I will also say that this was one of the first trials where DNA was being introduced as a mechanism of matching people to crime scenes. So there's a part of me that thinks that, well, maybe the jury just wasn't properly educated on how rare it is to have mistaken DNA evidence in this situation.
Well, it was so new.
Yeah.
I feel like now I've seen like 7,000 episodes of Bones where I'm like, oh, the DNA is like the hard truth, you know? But if we hadn't really heard of it yet.
That's true. And then I also wrote down that this is a jury pool of citizens who regularly see the police just doing messed up things to prove minorities guilty, right? So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so maybe they were educated on this, and they still dismiss. He's like, I'm not going to believe the cops. That, like,
and isn't there like a really racist cop involved in this?
We're going to get to him. We're going to get to him.
Okay, like more racist than most. Yeah.
He was phenomenally racist. Yes.
Right.
We will
stand out among the police. Yes.
I think it's like the next paragraph or 2 paragraphs from here.
Okay.
So this argument about the police doing shady things is actually the route the defense took themselves. They said the LAPD basically botched this either deliberately or accidentally. there's a ton of back and forth on this. I read all of this stuff, and if we went over it point by point, you'd literally just pass out listening to this. There
I do
was
think that you should start a judicial procedures podcast.
there's
I know
parts of
you
it
want
that's
to.
interest. There's parts of it that's like, yeah, I am kind of a nerd when it comes to that stuff. But I think I'm rare in that way. But in this case, there was issues with how they preserved the DNA evidence. There were discrepancies on how much blood there was, where it was, when it was there. There are claims of mishandling evidence. Yada. This drones on. Basically, the defense poked holes in
Mhm.
every part of the prosecution's case. I mean, frankly, because they could afford to do so. Most people don't have that luxury, right? Like you come up with a theory and then you try and argue that theory to counter the prosecution. In this case, they had however much money they needed. So they could literally just spend all their time finding ways to poke holes in everything, hiring every expert they could to poke holes in every detail of the prosecution's case.
I just looked it up when I was looking up. So Robert Shapiro is still alive. I just looked it up. He's 80 years old. But but in reading that, I saw like a little paragraph that the Dream Team cost $50,000 a day.
I think the total I looked up was it was somewhere around 3.5 to $6 million. How much OJ ended up spending for his entire defense? It's crazy.
Yeah.
That's hold on, that would have
Mhm.
been in '94 money.
Yeah.
So that would have been like probably
Do you want me to
10.
look it up?
Yeah, could you?
I'm so sorry. I'm doing this wrong.
I
Three
I'm
zero
gonna
zero
guess
zero
it's
zero zero zero.
no, it had to be like 7. So if you're doing 3.5, I would assume it would have to be somewhere around 7 to 8 million.
Yeah, I think it's like 7.
And that's on
It
the
was worth
low
it.
end.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like so if you do that conversion for like the high range of that, the 6 million, then you're looking at like a $12 million defense. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Um, was it worth it? You live the rest of your life as a pariah. Like, is it really? Maybe it is. I don't know.
Well, what are you gonna do? Go to jail? I mean, I guess he could have been like the coolest guy in jail.
I guess. I don't
I don't
know.
know. I
But
do know whatever. Can keep going.
so many opinions about OJ. I tried to find his Instagram because apparently he got an Instagram, and I think that the ones I found are complete fakes. So, to your point, Mr. incredibly famous LAPD racist, we're getting to Mark
Yes.
Furman.
Piece of
So,
shit, for sure.
so a little background on Mark. Like I said, he was an LAPD police officer, and he was one of the very first officers at the scene of OJ's estate. In 1985, so 9 years before the murder. I mean, this is the stuff that I started looking at. I was like, I totally forgot this was a thing. I didn't even know this was a thing. So 9 years before the murders, a screenwriter named Laura McKinney wanted to write a screenplay about the experiences of female officers.
Mhm.
She met Mark and asked that he provide consulting services about his experiences as a police officer, working with women in the police force and all that good stuff. Like we have been
Oh
saying,
God.
Mark
Mhm.
sucks. Mark is what a stupid person thinks a man's man is.
Yes. Ugh.
He is the definition of punching down and feeling good for
Mhm.
doing so. Laura recorded all these conversations she had with him. And amongst the amazing character traits that Mark exhibited, these are the beliefs that he held. He was a leader in a group called MAW, which stands for Men Against Women, which literally sounds like Al Bundy created it. Like this sounds like a
That is so stupid. That just sounds dumb. You sound dumb.
so, did
They
it
can't think of a worse name.
did it I could have sworn this was a part of Married with Children, right? Did Al
It
create
might be. Oh my God.
whatever?
It does
So
sound like that. Yeah.
the whole point of this is a group of male police officers who would harass and intimidate female LAPD officers. Like they would put them in harm's way. So for example, if like the female officer is in a shootout and asks for a backup, they just won't show. Like it was crazy levels
What?
of just trying to make these women's lives a living hell. And this was a big group. I didn't write the exact number down, but it was somewhere like 140, I think, if I remember correctly, was the number of LAPD officers that were a part of this organization. Or organization,
Gross.
bunch of fucking morons just hanging around.
Right. Yeah.
Men against women. Like, what does that even mean? Like, what?
I know. Do you like what? That's so stupid.
Cool
It's
guys, really cool guys.
so stupid. Like, oh, they're all alpha males
Such
or assholes.
idiots.
Keep going.
So he obviously said a ton of misogynistic things on these tapes, and I won't go into them except one thing, which was he was quoted as saying, "You've got to be able to shoot people, be people beyond recognition, and go home and hug your little kids. Women don't pack those qualities." Which, good. You shouldn't think that
Yeah,
beating someone beyond
100%.
recognition is a good thing. Like, why? You're an
Why are you
officer.
doing
Like,
that?
you're not the jury, you're not the judge, you're not the institution that is meant to punish these people. Like, you should be just taking them and putting them in the places where they can be prosecuted. Like, why are you beating someone beyond recognition?
Do you think, I know that like we said earlier that you were talking about, you're not against the police, but I do think that a lot of police reform wouldn't hurt, you know? And like
There's,
kind
yeah.
of it's always been the case. Yeah.
So,
Little sensitivity training.
yeah. So what happened? So much happened in LAPD police force because of this trial, because all this stuff came out, right? Like there was
Hmm.
investigations and wait, are y'all really not showing up as backup for women? Like a lot of the reforms came as a downstream impact of this case. There was another scandal that happened called Rampart, which I'm not going to get into, but there was multiple dominoes that fell because of this, which were great. There were great dominoes to fall. They should fall.
Yeah, good. Fuck those guys. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Mark was recorded on this saying the N word 41 times on the tape, which
What did
is
he think was happening? Yeah.
this is actually really important. This is a critical part of this case. And it comes up later on in the trial because Mark is asked if he has ever said that word, and he testifies, he perjures himself, saying no, he hasn't. So this is going to come up later on and is a big part of the defense's case, actually. Again, the reason why all this is relevant is because of the crime scene where they found Nicole and Ron's body. There was a bloody glove that was also found there. At OJ's
Hmm.
estate, there was another pair that was found by Mark. The defense states that Mark planted the glove because of his racial animus. That's why all this kind of ties together, right?
Hmm.
The defense said that Mark found the glove at the crime scene and then took it back to OJ's house. So we've concluded here that Mark sucks, right, Taylor?
He's not smart enough to do that, right?
That's what I'm getting at. Like, as shitty of
Yeah.
a human as he is, this almost certainly did not happen. Part of the reason why it's so obvious that this did not happen, despite his horrible, horrible character flaws, is that the crime scene was combed over for about 2 hours before Mark actually arrived at it. And nobody
Yeah.
there ever said anything about seeing a second glove. They only saw the one.
Hmm.
That's an obvious hole in this defense. The prosecution famously asks OJ to try on the glove to show that it fits him. OJ probably was
Uh-huh.
making a display of how hard it was. I mean, there's video that you can watch where I mean, this was we
It's
all
so
watched
dumb.
this
Yeah.
happen live, I think. But part of the glove basically is too small to fit him. But part of the assumption is that he had arthritis, which makes your joints flare up,
Yeah.
and that part of the medication for it is an anti-inflammatory, which he had stopped taking, so that his joints would flare up, expand in size, and make it difficult to put the gloves on easily. Like realistically, it could have been the fact that the gloves had been completely soaked in blood, the fact that they'd been
Right. If they're
frozen. Yeah, like, and also because of preservation issues, they'd frozen and defrosted the gloves multiple times. And also, a thing I didn't detail I forgot about was that he was also wearing latex gloves underneath the gloves when he tried them on at trial.
he
So
was? I didn't know that.
yeah,
That is,
yeah. I
oh
don't
my
know
God.
why they. Yeah, I don't know why they did it that way.
Well, Jesus. Yeah.
One thing I didn't know until after researching this was they also brought in a brand new pair of these gloves, the same size gloves, to have him try them on, and they fit perfectly. But nobody remembers that, right? Um,
What?
yeah.
That's ridiculous. I didn't know that. And I didn't know like, what? Well, that is suspicious,
S- One
for fuck's sake.
Yeah, so one of my favorite parts about this, which again I didn't write this down, but it was I admire his attorneys so much because they're like schoolyard kids.
Oh
Apparently,
my
they've been planning this. They didn't want to be the ones that call OJ up to try on the gloves. They wanted the prosecution to do it to make them look foolish. Because they had
God. Mm-hmm.
assumed that because of the blood, because of the freezing and defrosting, because they literally he didn't take his arthritis medicine, they knew it wasn't gonna fit right. And so apparently,
Right.
while they're in the middle of like the trial, they're basically goading the prosecution, saying, "Yeah, if you're so confident, tell them to try the gloves on. Go ahead, do it. You're so sure." Like it was like schoolyard tactics.
Exactly. Like get them. Oh my God.
And yeah, this is another part of it that I actually really, really loved was again, they were so good at the psychology of litigation, which is like its own separate like
Mm-hmm.
area of study. They mind fucked Marsha Clark and Chris Darden, the co-prosecution, during closing arguments, which Chris Darden is the one who did on the prosecution side. This is a
Mm-hmm.
time for each side to tell their story. Because at this point, you've heard so much about like DNA, enzyme this and expert that. Like
Mm-hmm.
you've glossed over so much. This is a time when you can kind of wrap it up into this really nice, clean package, and like it's theater.
Right.
Like that's really what it's meant to be. OJ's lawyers, during the closing argument of the prosecution, objected 71 times.
Oh my God.
69 of these were overruled. They were just trying to mess up the flow because this guy's trying.
Oh,
He's been
100%.
Yeah, he was trying. He probably sat there in front of his like mirror and practiced all his gestations and movements of the hands and all that. And they were just like objection. And you just stop. Okay, now we gotta
Just to
answer
be
this.
jerks.
Yeah, just be jerk. So at one point,
Wow.
Judge Ito threatened to hold the defense in contempt if they kept doing it, which is like a huge. That's kind of like the last straw, right? Like it's
Yeah.
incredible. Johnny Cochran, who was the lead counsel for OJ, he made this whole thing about race and racism of the
Mm-hmm.
LAPD. He
Mm-hmm.
compared Mark Furman to Adolf Hitler. And I think
Mm-hmm.
the best part of all of this is that he offered literally zero proof of a cover up. He just said things, but he said them with the kind of conviction that a really good storyteller can say, and
Mm-hmm.
that was it. It was
Mm-hmm.
literally like there was again they're during the trial they're just trying to counter the arguments of the prosecution. They're not painting a picture of all the other things, like what their theory is of what happened. They are just
Right. There's no like there's never been like an investigation to see who else could have done it.
oh that's yeah. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm gonna bring that up
That
here in a second
that
too.
doesn't exist.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. All this was painted as racism. So Mark Furman basically tanked the state's case against OJ
Mm-hmm.
because he perjured himself saying I'm not racist. Then he's caught on this tape. So that's it really. And
Yeah.
frankly, because 2 years prior, all these people again think about the makeup of the jury. All these people saw the LA riots happening, and they framed all in the Rodney King beating and everything else that went on with the LAPD. It's like they were
Mm-hmm.
ripe for this story to resonate with them. To again remind everyone how big of a deal this was, Bill Clinton, who was president at the time of this trial, he was being updated regularly about the jury deliberations because he
Mm-hmm.
was ready to deploy the National Guard if another riot
Yeah.
were to break out.
That makes
So
sense.
the jury
Yeah.
deliberated for 4 hours, and obviously, like I said up at the top, they returned a verdict of acquittal. One of the jurors did the Black Panther fist raise thing at OJ when the verdict was read, further illustrating just how much race played a factor in all of this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's interesting because there's again one of the 50,000 documentaries that were made about this case. That guy, the guy who did the Black Panther, the juror who did that, he was in a documentary about the case in 2016. He came out in that documentary saying, on retrospect, he should have voted for guilt. So that's where yeah, it's like, man,
Hot take. Thank you, sir.
what are you like? You're 22 years too late. But yeah,
Oh my
good
God.
point.
That's hilarious.
Driving the point even further, 75% of white America thought that he was guilty. 70% of African Americans thought that he was innocent. It's worth noting that the numbers narrowed since then. So in 2016, again, another poll was taken where 57% of African Americans think that he is actually guilty. So that
Yeah.
swayed
I
further
think
in
it
that
was
direction.
just there was so much tension. Yeah, definitely.
That is mostly it. What followed was a string of other legal and financial battles. OJ was sued by Fred Goldman, who is Ron's incredibly mustachioed father, and he
Ugh,
lost
okay.
a $33 million judgment because again, it was a wrongful death. Like it was a different burden of proof, and he lost that. He went on
Yeah.
to try and publish a book called If I Did It, which the Goldman family sued him over. They later published the book, but reduced the if part to such tiny font that the actual print of the cover read "I did it." In
What?
2008, yeah, in 2008, he was sentenced to 33 years in prison for breaking into the hotel room of a sports memorabilia collector and stealing a bunch of stuff, which admittedly it was like his stuff. I know, it was O.J. Simpson memorabilia, not that he owned it, but he was found guilty of armed robbery and kidnapping. He ultimately served 9 years in prison and then was paroled in 2017. I put some fun facts here that are kind of just add some color to this. Like I said, we talked about a little bit before. Man, this guy was such a different human before this happened and such a different person after it happened. He went on to host and create a prank show called Juiced, which is the worst concept I have ever heard of.
God.
It thankfully died a quiet death after just one episode, but basically it was like a pranked style reality show where things happen to people and then OJ jumps out and says, "You got juiced." And it's
Oh my God, I hate prank shows. They're so stupid, and also that is so dumb.
do you think people are happy
Could you
to see
imagine? You'd be real
you?
scared. You'd be like, "Are you gonna murder me?"
You'd be terrified. Like
Yes.
he, OJ Simpson jumps out of nowhere and it's like he's laughing and he's still like a huge dude and it's like what's going on? Like should I
That's
be
so funny.
doing
No, that'd be
so
real. You'd be real confused.
so thankfully that died quietly. The LAPD later on refused to reopen the case. The police chief came out at the time and said, quote, "The acquittal doesn't mean there's another murderer." Like again, everybody knew he did it. So
Yeah, they didn't like. No one ever tried to find anybody else.
yeah, exactly. I There's another fun fact that I wrote down here around one of my absolute all-time favorite comedians ever. I learned about this after his death recently. I think it was maybe a year or two ago that it happened. But Norm Macdonald, are you familiar with Norm Macdonald, Taylor?
I knew you were gonna say Norm Macdonald. Keep going.
Did you? Okay.
I
So
don't know the
for those,
joke, but I knew that he'd be the person that you were talking about. Keep
yeah,
going.
totally. So if you're unfamiliar with him, he is this hilarious deadpan comic who rose to fame on SNL in the 1990s. I would describe his comedy as kind of the embodiment of just really not giving a shit about consequences. Norm anchored the joke news show on SNL called Weekend Updates. He was apparently told by executives at NBC, who's the company that produces SNL, to stop making jokes about OJ. This exec named Don Ohlmeyer was apparently super close friends with OJ, and all these
Mhm.
jokes were written by Norm himself and one writer on SNL called Jim Downey. Jim was actually fired outright, and Norm was fired from doing the weekend anchor role. He was still on SNL, but he very shortly had to leave that as well. I watched all these segments he did. It's totally worth a YouTube visit. Not because I think making fun of OJ is particularly funny or that, or any of that. It's more like you watch him knowingly sink his career with this grin on his face and just being like, guys, this is looter. You know what it reminded me of was even at NBC, the executives there are trying to protect this guy. And there
Yeah,
was something indignant about Norm Macdonald's attitude that was like, I don't even think he was doing it for the comedy. I think he was doing it for like, this is insane. Why are we trying to treat this guy with any sort of reverence?
I rem I remember I remember right after, I don't know if it was him or if it was someone else, but on Weekend Update, they did the thing with like the picture of OJ and they said, well, it's still murder is legal in California. That's the
yeah,
joke I remember.
Yeah, I wrote I wrote one of these down because so he would deliberately interject it in just total non sequitur ways. Again, just pointing out the lunacy of why are we trying to protect this guy. He did a segment on Charles and Diana's divorce, which was going on at this time, and
Wow.
he threw this graphic up that was like, and Charles wrote a book about it, and this picture of Charles in the book cover read, "Of course OJ did it. Come on." Like it just has nothing. Like he's talking about Diana and Charles, but he made it a point
Yeah.
to do this. And yeah, I just thought that was absolutely fantastic. Kind of like speaking truth to power in a way that nobody did to
Hmm.
OJ Simpson. So yeah,
Yeah.
goes to Norm Macdonald. But that's my story.
Wow. Wow. The only conspiracy theory that I've heard that I kind of like is I did hear from Crime Junkie, I think, another podcast. They did like a special where there's a theory that like OJ's son from his first marriage is or was like a little unstable, and he was not invited to that dinner after the recital, and he was really mad, and that's why, and then he went and killed her, but obviously that's not true, but that's like the only thing I've heard that is like has like a little bit of like maybe that could have happened, but really like man, he definitely did it.
Have you ever met anybody who has said he didn't do it?
I remember when I was like watching it, I was in like middle school, and I was like, people talked about it all the time. And I was like, maybe he didn't do it also, but I mean, I was 12. Like, what am I supposed to know?
I
But
know.
I don't know who I was hearing that from or whatever, but no, I don't know anybody now who would say that he didn't do it.
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
imagine someone today being like, yeah, he did it. And
Yeah.
he lives in
100%.
Florida and he's out of jail and just like goes to Costco. It's weird.
So weird. So weird. Like he's just a
Yeah.
national. Like you're that is the only thing you're known for. I mean, it's crazy to think that like all the accomplishments, all that bullet point I listed off of all the things that he did, all of it gone. He's the guy who killed his wife.
Yeah.
Like that's basically it. So
And you can't even like celebrate him for his sports achievements because you just can't. So there it doesn't matter.
his jersey's still retired, which I was kind of surprised by, but I don't know.
Hmm.
So that's my story, and
That was
yeah,
crazy.
yeah, wild times.
So, Bars.
Taylor.